Hi, I'm Ron Ario, and welcome to another edition of the Journey to Awakening podcast. I'm author of Journey to Awakening and the Quantum Performance Coach. Also with my special guest today, Satyen Raja. And Satyen, if you give me a moment just to read a little about you, so I make sure I include all of your accolades here. Okay. Satyen is, one second. Satyen, let me move this out of the way here. Satyen is the founder and CEO of the Transformational Academy Warrior Sage. He's impacted over 100,000 students from over 50 countries around the world. After 35 years of rigorous study and practice in both creating enlightened business growth and developing higher consciousness, Satyen works privately with CEOs, high-impact individuals, executive teams who have mastered accomplishment in the financial and public world, but now want a deeper balance, illumination, and self-realized equilibrium that he calls peak existence. A remarkable living synthesis of Eastern wisdom and Western practicality, Satyen combines the power of the warrior and wisdom of the sage to lead leaders worldwide into their highest self-knowledge, self-expression, and impact. Satyen's elite clientele know they are ready for the next level integrated fullness and a life vibrant with purpose, passion, passionate intimacy, connection, significance, and transcendence. If you are ready, Satyen's fearless and heartfelt style will transform your untapped potentialities into strengths and the full spectrum of your life into peak existence. So Satyen, thanks again for taking time to be available during this crazy time in our history and the time that we chose to come. And the reason I was inspired to ask you on is not only have I been following you for some time now, is you were doing a live on Facebook the other day and you brought up a subject and you triggered me like you just hit me right at the right moment. You were talking about tolerance and when is enough. And my warrior just got like perked up, like out of nowhere, like, okay, well, now somebody's talking about when is enough, because it seems like the whole world's been acquiescing to authority and locking down like never before. And I thought that this conversation could have a great impact on others who are trying to balance that equilibrium, because as students of mastery, we're taught to take responsibility for our inner life. And so my first inclination is always go inside. But then when is that time enough? So I'd like you to really kind of talk about that, and then we'll just let this evolve organically.
Well, thanks for having me, and everyone listening, thanks for your receptivity. Yes, brother, we are in very interesting, strong evolutionary times, a time for great potential, great spiraling up as a society, and also great spiraling down potential is there, probably both. And, in the warrior traditions, it's a very valid principle, this principle, eternal spiritual principle of tolerance. And when we're not tolerant as younger people or unconscious people or ignorant people, then we train ourselves. We learn from wisdom keepers that it's very good to cultivate more tolerance, to open our heart, to be more accepting, to be more loving, to accept things as the way they are. Don't fight with them. Don't resist things. These are all valid, timeless, ancient, eternal principles of wisdom that I think are still always and ever valuable to cultivate and open. And yet there's a yin and a yang side, both sides to tolerance. And the non-tolerance part, you see, in essence, the life we have, I believe, is based on what we tolerate. If we've got stuff going on in our life, it's because we're tolerating. If there's good stuff going on in our life that we enjoy, we acknowledge, we appreciate, we praise, it's because we are allowing that into our life. We're accepting and we're saying, I will tolerate this. If there's things that are in our life that we don't like, things that are causing us tension, contraction, playing small, bothering us, people, individuals, circles, jobs, careers, habits, behaviors within ourselves, behaviors in others. If we allow those to be in our space, then we're tolerating those, and they will be there more and more because we're not developing a boundary to say no to that. So as much validity in essence as there is to acceptance and tolerating, even more, tolerating people of different views, different backgrounds, different ethnic origins, different languages, different tastes, different foods. This grows us. This makes us better people by being more inclusive. Yet there's this impeccable spiritual warrior within us can grow by also saying and claiming and demanding and putting our foot down and holding up a strong, healthy barrier to what we will not and no longer and shall longer tolerate. In other words, it is a sacred fire of not tolerating intolerance. Because if not, we're just going to get shit on. We're going to get control. We're going to become sheep. We're going to be just let people do, let governments do, let people do whatever they want, and we'll go along with it. And that's the crisis and the opportunity right now.
So that's why I wanted you on. And so let's talk about that for a second. So as we are challenged to maintain our internal equilibrium, to maintain our peace, to keep our heart open, to keep love in our heart and compassion. And we see so many different narratives and timelines playing out right now. And we could really see clearly, and you can see it all over Facebook, where people's consciousness really is, where they're spending their time. If they're talking about the political agendas, even though they may seem awake, but they're talking about political parties, we can see they're still caught in a trap, right? So because I got some big questions for you here, brother. It's like, how do we cross that line? Because it's a razor's edge. How do we cross that line to maintaining our internal peace, love, and harmony, and unifying? Because unifying is going to take a certain amount of action. And when you do take that action, your focus and attention is going to be placed on that resistance to some degree, right? And so how do we come together and organize because without organizing, we're going to continue to be shit on. At some point, we have to come together. What's your view? How do you see that?
This is a very tricky question. And it's a very nuanced question, and I believe it deserves great fleshing out within ourselves, individually, and as a society, and collectively. Look, in the yogic traditions, in the Hindu traditions, not only do we have the light side, the bright side of the divine, they also show up as a righteous indignation, as intolerance. At times, they can become wrathful. If you look at the image of Kali, she's the wrathful deity of the feminine goddess that says, enough is enough. You're harming my people. You're harming my children. You're harming the earth. You're harming otherness. You're harming the sanctity of life. I will no longer tolerate it. And if you see the visual, the iconography of Kali, she's got a necklace around her head of men's heads who have chopped off, who've been evil, who've been dark, who've been manipulative, who are trying to control. So in these uncertain times, here's the thing that happens, is whether a lot of this has been crafted, these circumstances that we're having, whether they've been manipulated, whether they're diabolically engineered for whatever causes, by whomever, however, there's many factions in beliefs and ideas in the world of who's doing what, to how, to whatever, right? The bottom line is it's doing harm. And the bottom line is that regardless of whether it was consciously created, as some people believe, like a biological warfare by whomever, or it's some crazy mutation that is moving through the world, the bottom line is there's going to be people who will take advantage of it, even if it wasn't generated, but coming from greed, coming from ego, coming from wanting to get power. It might not be off planet aliens. It might not be diabolical cabals. We don't need to go that far an extent to find already in just business people alone who are not in their heart, are moving, are vying for more profit, more vulturism right now. That's the capitalism part of capitalism. There's a part of it that when our heart is closed and we're not in service to our fellow human, then we can become vultures energetically. We can become vampires of the system, sucking the system when it's down. That is the part I believe we should not tolerate.
Absolutely. And
part, right?
Well, regardless of the narratives that are all playing out right now, and we know those very well, the bottom line, the repercussions of what you're talking about is we're at risk of not being in control of our own body. We're at risk of being sovereign. We're at risk of allowing what happened or being in complete control of how we take care of ourselves, like becoming automatons and units of control, you know? And so I agree with you there. That is, how do we stop that, Satyen? How do we organize?
So this is, you talked about how do we find that balance? So the first part is, because we tend to, as people involved in growth work, in human potential, in personal spiritual consciousness evolution, our tendency might be to be more embracing based on our nature, to be more loving, to include, to open our heart, as you shared, those timeless, beautiful principles, right? But us spiritual individuals, those oriented towards consciousness and raising of consciousness and unity, we also have to cultivate the warrior inside and say no to what we do not want to tolerate. But as we say no and close the door and create a boundary, no, I don't want to get vaccinated, mandatory. I will choose it, but no, I will not do it mandatorily. I will not do it as a draconian measure. I will do it choicefully upon my own education, upon my own volition, upon my own choice, if I wish, as an example of one of the things that might come down the pipeline in having to make a decision that it affects our sovereignty in the moment. But with every door we say no to, there's the yin. We must say also yes to another door. So if I say no to that, I must say yes to another aspect. I say yes to getting together with my neighbor, to developing more friendships and bonds with my actual neighbors, not hello, how are you, but truly, brother, sister, do you need anything? Do you need any support? Do you need any butter? You need any sugar? You need any flour? I've got lots here. I'm happy to share fruits and vegetables from my garden. Oh, really? Well, I would love to offer and share with you this. It's generosity and care is the new millionaire. It's the new billionaire. We need to open our hearts that way in the like what we're doing right now. We're bonding. Where we reached out, you're reaching out to me. What can I do to serve you, brother? How can I be of better benefit to your freedom? If I offer that, you're going to want to do the same for me.
Well, I see you as an individual that needs to be heard. I want to use this platform to get your voice out there. You know what I mean?
Right.
Absolutely, because it's gonna benefit us all. Well, the new currency is the compassion. It is love, because the old system is breaking down. And Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about it. He says we can't solve our present problems with the same consciousness that caused them, and that's all done out of fear. And so somehow we have to, what comes to mind also, Satyen, is Gandhi. But I don't know if Gandhi's methods can work right now, because what are your thoughts on that? Because
I believe Gandhi's solution is even more powerful and apropos right now.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. He went from town to town, village to village. I'm actually, my family from my mother's side are all from that area, are all Gandhian, in their Gandhi family, in fact. And they were very close to the Gandhi's philosophy. And what I recognized in Gandhi's philosophy when I started learning, many of us know him about his rise of aiming to have the English or British leave India and have India have its own sovereignty back. Many people know about that story. They know about the independence of India. What they don't know is that he would go from village to village to village. And a lot of people thought he's talking about exiting the British, but no, most of his teachings, his sharings and his offerings were about how to develop self-reliance. Self-reliance on yourself. Self-reliance in community bonding. How can we become more cleaner? How can we have more sanitary conditions? How can we be less reliant on the local tribe leader, let alone the prime minister or president? How can we have it so that we're relying and self-reliant and supportive of each other in a conscientious way, where each one of us is sovereign and responsible for our own integrity, to live in truth, to be generous, to be supportive of our fellow humankind, to care for our young and our old, and to learn how to grow our own food, how to strengthen our own mind and our resolve and our own education, not just rely on the forces to educate us, but to take self-education as our own self-resourcefulness, to teach us about sanitary conditions, what to eat, what not to eat, that will uplift our spirit, keep us dialed into our best, our highest expression, and how to find the power of our own governance. I am the one that governs me, not that tribal leader, not that president, not that prime minister. They are servants to us as society.
That's what we...
They are not the top. They are the most bottom. He was teaching this village to village. And so now it's the perfect time to listen to Gandhi and to say, there might be a time for not civil disobedience, but civil solidarity.
How do we bring that about? How do we organize without being shut down? Because it's hard to go, even right now with all the constraints and the other constraints that are going to be wished to put upon us after this act. Even if they open everything up, they've already established a base in which they can operate from, right? So how do we, it's through the internet, do we start to gain that solidarity? And then how, because we gotta somehow physically make a presence.
Yes.
It can't work through the internet, So
it has to be 2 levels. It has to be at a metaphysical soul internal shift of claiming responsibility for myself, and finally saying to the adolescent, recognizing, oh my goodness, there is a youth, there's an inner child, there's an adolescent in me that wants to be saved, wants to be pampered, wants to be cared for. We all want to be cared for. We all want to be pampered for. But that should be from our loves in our life. It shouldn't be from our governments. It shouldn't be from authorities. So how do we do it? Number one, we need to go from they, the term they, to who. Who are the people? Who are the individuals? Okay, well, if I'll give you an example, pipelines. We have many pipelines. The oil and gas industry, God bless them. It's helped us in the whole industrial revolution. We've grown as a society worldwide by the gifts of oil and gas and what it's the internal combustion engine and all of that. We can't poo-poo it. It has helped us to get to this evolution. And yet it's also halting us to the next stage of evolution if we keep perpetuating that, and rather than move forward into new forms of renewable, sustainable, regenerative energy, right? As an example.
Which could have happened 60 years ago.
It could have happened a long time ago,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
We tolerated it. We as scientists, we as business people, we tolerated this system because it gave us security. So what do we have to do? We got to get out of the fuzz of they. Who are they? It's going back to the gas pipelines. How many good-hearted, loving, conscientious, spiritual people I know are at the end of the pipeline protesting with good spirit? But do you think the people at the end, they're just the guys working the machineries. They're just like everyone else in the system. The police are there everyone in the system. They're not the people to protest against? What about where the pipeline starts? Not physically. It starts in a boardroom somewhere. It starts in a boardroom somewhere. When we find out who are those CEOs, who is their executive teams, and instead of protesting there, how about we go in front of their house, find out where they live, and instead of use violence, instead of make them wrong, instead of them seeing them as an army, this is the Gandhian approach. This is where we say, they are my brother and my sister. We are a world family. Now we have to legally find a distance that allows them their natural legal distance, and then sit there in prayer and meditation like they did in Iceland. They walked right up to the Parliament building with drums, said, hello, very nice. We've got sandwiches for you here. We'd love to. It's not working out the way you're leading the government. And so we'd like you to take a little bit of a holiday, permanent, and we got nice sandwiches and good lemonade for you, but we'd like you to leave. Boom, boom. You just wait there joyfully, with the higher intention of raising the bar, but also simultaneously being intolerant to the current leadership. But here's the thing: we need to strike the root, not the flowering.
Yeah, I get you. I remember 4 years, 5 years ago, I was saying these people have addresses.
Yes,
they have addresses, man. You know what I mean? And some of them will lead to big castles, and we know that. You know what I mean? But
we get in front of those castles, in front of those board offices, outside the corporate buildings, in front of the houses, but peacefully, conscientiously.
It has to be. It has to be.
Well, watch what happens. What will happen is the policies will turn around in a week or two. No one in those leadership positions wants people in front of their house. They're happy that you protest on TV. They're happy that you march downtown. That gives them power.
Well, that's
adolescent screaming. It is our adolescent. But the warrior within will go to the root, eliminate the root of the problem, stop it there. We don't have to worry about all the other things.
Okay, so here comes that
eye contact.
Okay, so for those individuals that still haven't woken up, that are still seeking authority, watching TV and all that kind of stuff, as they go through their process. And I really wanted to start this interview off talking about your past a little bit. We jumped right into it. But I wanted to, at some point I'm going to shift, because I want people to understand your path to your awakening as well, because I think that's really apropos, because individuals are going to be starting to go through spontaneous awakenings where it might have taken us years on our path. They're now being presented with, they have to make, either go crazy or start to make adjustments into more spiritual awareness. So I know for myself, I remember when I went through my awakening in 2014, and when I saw everything that was really going on in the world, I wanted to scream from the rooftops, you know, yes. And I wanted to let everybody know what was going on. But then I realized it's not making me happy. You know what I mean? What I focused my attention on, this is actually creating a lot of disturbance in me continually, because nobody appreciates it other than those that are already awake. Everybody else wants to bury you. And so I had to make a choice. How do I respond to life? Each moment, if I choose to respond with love and beauty, then my life is going to be love and beauty based on the eternal present, in which I have complete control over. So I've prescribed to that. And now I put out that kind of information, because it's a reflection of what's going on, not only internally, but it's also what I want to exist in. And so as people start to wake up, their first inclination is going to be anger, like it is with all of us when we first start to wake up. How we got to guide them over the anger really quickly, so that they can start to understand their responsibility in their present, and how they create their reality. What's your answer? What's your solution to that one? You know,
I totally understand what you're saying. When I first started finding out, I read a book called The Medical Mafia when I was 18. I got into holistic medicine and Chinese medicine and shiatsu and acupuncture when I was 17. And part of my family is all medical doctors, so they're very entrenched in that world. And when I started entering these holistic worlds and getting new realms, new ideas of holistic health to build vitality in different ways, to strengthen the immune, strengthen the spirit, rather than have intervention ways to kill the biomes and things inside myself. Right? When I started getting these perceptions, I was like blown away. But then when I read this book by Ghislaine Lancôme called The Medical Mafia, I went, oh my goodness, she was showing how the profit system goes from one to the other to the other. And my idea of an altruistic medical system just blew up. And I was angry. I was like, this is for profit, and this is illness care. This is making profit from people's illness and keeping them in a system where illness is produced and can be highly profitable. And I went, if that's even there, even subconsciously, even in the structure that profit increases, the more people are ill, then I went, oh my goodness, and I got really upset. And what I realized, like you, over time, when I was a younger man, I was full of fire, full of anger, wanting to tear that down, burn the old system. And guess what? The old system is very entrenched. It's not entrenched in anything physical. It's entrenched in motive.
The same power that controls the financial system controls the medical system. It all comes from the same source.
All the same. It's all the same. It's all the same. When you look at it and you go beyond the layers, it's all interconnected. The military, industrial, medical, insurance, and whatever else complex. It's all one.
Media, advertise, it's everything. So that's a lot to digest for a person that's not awake.
Yeah.
That's a lot to digest. Generally, we can take it in layers, but to hit it spontaneously, like, let me ask you a question, Satyen. I remember back 3.5 years old having awareness that I shouldn't have had at 3.5 years old. So I knew there was things that I can fall back on to pull me up, when things weren't making sense in the physical world. And it sounds like you had the exact same thing. Did you have a spontaneous awakening at some point along the way? I mean, it was gradual, because I know mine in 2014 was like a spontaneous combustion. You know what I mean? Where the wheels fell off the car, You know what I mean? The wheels fell off the car. I was very lucid. I was seeing the reality. I seen all the pieces of the puzzle starting to fit together. At the same time, I'm getting divine downloads, and I'm trying to balance that mess. Did you have the same thing?
Something very similar, my friend. I was having a gradual awakening as a youngster, moving out of the matrix way of thinking, if you will. And then I sat on enlightenment intensives with one of my mentors, which is a deep dive meditation type retreat, where you ask yourself, who am I? What am I? What is life? What is another? But no one gives you an answer. You've got to keep plummeting the answer day after day, hour after hour, with these deep self-inquiries. And all your ideas come up to the surface, and then they fly away, dissolve. And then eventually, over days, weeks, you get to the core, and it's like there's nothing there. You're emptied. And in those moments, you can be ready for awakening. And that's what happened to me. I had a very powerful awakenings early in my 20s that continue, but very major ones in my 20s. And what happened was the whole structure blew up. Everything that I thought was solid and reliable and something I could lean on in society, that all blew away. And then I found out that the only thing that was solid and reliable that I could lean on was the things that are not solid, the things that are eternal, that are not temporary, universal truths, universal love, consciousness itself, the life force, the prana of existence, the love between us and the love that we are in existence. So I was very blessed to have these experiences, because I got rerouted, I got rerooted to having the eternal be in my center and the place that I go to for strength, not the things of the external world. So guess what? Mother Nature, this whole time has given humanity a timeout. Go to your room. We've been playing around, bumping kids, hitting kids in the playground, bumping into them, stealing their sandboxes, and moms told us she sent us fires, she sent us climate change, she sent us all signs on the planet. Week after week, year after year, she keeps sending signals. Look, this is what's happening when you're bumping into each other, when you forget who you are. So finally, she's given us a timeout. So now we're in this timeout. I'm in the timeout. Right? Whatever's going on, I'm frustrated. I want to get back to work. No, the timeout is a sacred time now to reorient and go, you know what? What is no longer freaking important? What have I been tolerating that I no longer will tolerate? Because if we do and we go back after this quarantine, then I promise you, karma will hit hard if we go back to the old ways. Mama Nature will no longer give us a timeout. She's going to give us a slap on the hand. And next she's going to, who knows, might kick you out. And by kicking you out, she might kick you out of this earth dimension.
We go back to Atlantis. You know what I mean?
Or if we say, I will no longer tolerate the systems that have kept us subjugated in mental, emotional, and spiritual and financial poverty as a whole. We got every solution on the planet right now. All the wisdom keepers have every solution on the planet. What we don't have is a unified resolve to implement them and the act of will and love to get together. So what do? We must not tolerate our apathy. We must not just tolerate out there. We must not tolerate our own complacency. And we must now tolerate opening our hearts and bonding with, look, you need to become the ruler of the world. I need to become the ruler of my world. We all need to become the ruler of the world, not out of ego, but out of self-resourcefulness, out of spiritual warriorship, out of conscience. When we do that, and we're saying, and we keep embracing that, just the internal claiming of that patterning will start to destructure the old patterns of illusionary control. They'll start falling apart. They cannot grab onto us because we are unhookable. We cannot be like Velcro where we're the soft part and the claws get to cling. We got to be smooth so that even Velcro comes along, we're not hooked. Then we have attained adamantium divine power, which is our birthright, our nature, and our invitation right now.
So well said. So as many are processing at their own rate and their own pace right now, their internal reality. And as they start to come into this awareness, we're going to be required, those of us that are maybe just ahead of them on the curve, it's going to require a tremendous amount of compassion, love, and understanding to support them through their own awakenings. Because we're at the precipice of a mass awakening right now. And what would be beautiful is if somehow they can accelerate through their process what took us years to go through at times, right? To accelerate through their process, because we've been the precursors to support the planet in this. We've been anticipating this time. We knew this time was coming. We just didn't know what it was going to look like. And then all of a sudden, boom, it was there. Satyen, was that just not a big surprise in how it arrived, right? So I'm on the front lines with you, brother. You know what I mean? So however I can participate and organize and we can create and support those, because we got to get them over the hump. We got to get them from the anger and the astonishment, because when the truth really starts coming to the surface, it's going to curl people's toes. They have no idea what's going to come to the surface. And then how do we transition them out of that darkness that we actually have all tolerated and existed in unknowingly into the essence of what's possible and who we are, who we truly are, because people aren't aware of their multidimensional self. You know, they're just not aware of it.
Here's what I feel that we need to do: pragmatic as a society right now. I'm on the forefront of doing this, and I'm glad you've expressed it. You're doing this. It's happening anyways in pockets. And here's what it is. We got to start dismantling, taking off from our idolatry. We've been making golden calves of the smartest, the richest, the entertainers. God bless them all. They shouldn't be, we don't have to vilify them, but we don't have to enshrine them as the gods of society. We need to dethrone the gods in ourselves of traditional TikTok, mechanistic, Orwellian society that we are ended up in. And so we need to move that. Instead of the smartest, the most powerful, the richest, we need to start enshrining who are the most wisest. Wisdom is timeless. Wealth comes and goes. Power comes and goes. Fame comes and goes. Even intelligence comes and might wane, but wisdom only deepens and spirals and becomes more powerful and more silent and more expansive. Only wisdom. So the first thing is, all of us wisdom keepers who have had awakenings, all of us wisdom keepers who have a knowledge of the higher self, all of us wisdom keepers who've been blessed with inner awakening and centeredness and grace and the gifts of the absolute. We need to come together first of all and band as wisdom groups, wisdom keeper communities, yourself, everyone, and then we get together. And then what we do, as we get together, we will know as wisdom keepers, because we have an artful way of being with each other. We have walked the path of life. We will know how to come together, and then we demonstrate, guide, and influence, and give the leaders who are younger, who have the brash, who have the fortitude to create physical change, then we infuse them. They need to come to us, wisdom keepers. We need to foster this space where we say, we elders have this priceless gold, which will take us from this craziness, from the path of self-destruction, to the path of wholeness, to the path of blooming our society into beautiful realms. And so the wisdom keepers are the key. They must come together, unify, and then their consciousness must be pumped out to the world right now.
Satyen, you're already in position to lead this, and I'm going to tell you what just popped into my head that I totally forgot. The last chapter in my book, Journey to Awakening, is called Corporate Alchemy, where I had this vision. Corporations run this world, not governments, okay? We're not going to change our societies within the voting democratic process. It's impossible, because it's all built on special interests and corporations that are actually running the world behind the scenes. So the future leaders are going to be CEOs, and you're already a master of that. The future leaders are CEOs. To change the corporate structure from that of serving the bottom line dollar to serving the humans that exist and the earth. Okay, so you're already primed in that position. And so I think the message that needs to be really galvanized and taken out, and I think this will be an underlying current, and I'd love to participate with you on this, by the way.
Absolutely.
That literally just popped into my head. But I had this vision when I wrote my book, and it's getting CEOs to take responsibility, that each employee is a human with a soul. And my work in wanting to work with CEOs, and I've talked to you about this before, but I don't know how to bridge that gap. My work is getting leaders to value the purpose and mission of each of their individual employees and department heads and executive teams, and then have the corporation be the ultimate vision. And then each of those individuals can participate in the vision of the corporation to its greater good, and then be supported even to go off on their own with their own vision without any limitation. And so everybody is on purpose. So every employee, their purpose is aligned with the corporate purpose.
Oh, this is the key. I'm 100%, 1000% with you in this, what you just shared. You know, you look at Dr. Bronner's, the famous soap company, doing such great in the world. So much profits, 30% being given to charities, the way they structure things. The CEO has a cash limit. He can only make up to, I think, 5 times the amount of the average worker in his company maximum. And so what? Deserve it. And there's more equilibrium, equanimity, equality amongst people, and honoring. But I believe at the corporate level, and you're right, this is the realm I have been given the if you will, the mission to serve. And that is, when I'm working with corporate leaders, my aim, first of all, is I dismantle, I look at everything, I say, let's first get the mission and the vision so it's good for the greater whole. It's omni-win, meaning it's winning for the whole. And they're like, how do we do that? And I say, and then I'll take, for example, a long mission statement that's on a wall that sounds all convoluted for the shareholders. It's just a dead piece. It's a statement on a wall. It's dead. I like to recraft it to source it from the soul with the companies I work with who are ready now. They're right. More and more CEOs are coming out of the closet and saying, I'm ready for spiritual evolution and world-centric service through my corporate. They are. And those who are listening and are open, please come and reach us, because if you don't know how to come out of it, we'll guide you so that you're not an enemy to the old system. You are a transformer of the old system and can create something even more prosperous beyond your imagination, which is demonstrated now with every single corporation that I've worked with. Now, I'll give you an example. We took one mission and it was all convoluted, and I said it was an AI software. And at the end of the day, we created a new mission, not a mission statement, a mission, which is creating a world that doesn't break down. We turned a software that sees and can tell when things are going to break down way in advance. Now it's going all through all railways, it's going through oil rigs, it's going through all types of mechanical industries, and it's changing the world. One day, we're not going to have stuff break down. We'll know months in advance, change this screw, do this. How much lives is that already saving, right? Amazing. There's another company that I'm working with, which had another long, convoluted, old school, old intention, old impression, old value style mission statement, corporate oriented. We turned that into, and it's a real estate, series of real estate companies, better homes for better lives. Simple few words. So now the whole company, all the teammates are conscripted to do something, everything that they do, they know it's for a higher good. It's to have better homes, their own, their clients, everyone, so that everyone has better lives. It's a step towards unity consciousness in a pragmatic, real way. Now, one more thing I want to get to at the middle of the corporate, I consider darkness, or the misstep that we took years ago. The term incorporation means to take a non-spirit being, to give it a corporate, give it a body. To incorporate means to embody. So in law, we have made a non-real thing an entity that's real, which then has equal status in law to a natural human spirit being, which is totally against natural law, totally against natural law. So that very beginning, no wonder the momentum of making non-spirit and saying it's spirit through legal words and giving it legal status of a spiritual whole human equality. We got to dismantle that. We got to recognize that instead of a corp, meaning we're not making spirit into a body, how about it becomes a cooperation? So now we're seeing we are all cooperating together in higher coherence, aligned around a vision that's omni-win, good for the whole, good for Mother Earth, good for you, for me, for everyone. That's going to take more discipline. It's going to take more looking into the granular of my supply chains, how I do business, who I do business with, my net extrapolation from the earth to my net giving of the earth. What's happening here? So these things, when we, not just on a spiritual level, it starts there. We got to get the spirit out of the corporation and put it back in the humans.
And by the way, I have a feeling those corporations were set up that way purposely, you know what I mean? But having said that, 100%, 100%. And I got to tell you, when off of us talking here, I'd like to share with you what I've developed to transform CEOs, their executive teams, and their employees. Okay,
Fantastic.
that I've just accumulated over my lifetime of being in business and going through my awakening and everything else, because it's the CEOs are the future leaders, Satyen. And if we can start getting CEOs to do everything in the highest and best interest of all involved, then we're transforming our world. Because we can't transform governments. It's going to be impossible.
Let them burn.
Yeah, well, they're burning.
So
they're going to
sometimes
burn.
when there's a fire going on, you got to let it, sometimes you try to put the fire out, but sometimes you got to let it burn.
Yeah, and
I don't like to say that, but sometimes you got to let things burn. But while it's burning there, we can craft something new.
Hey, we burned during our awakening. You know, you got to burn the dross out the dross, right? You got to burn out everything that's not real in order to find out what is real. And, you know, and the governments, and this, I don't want to go off on a tangent on this, but, you know, we know the central banking system controls governments, you know what I mean? So they're not in control of themselves anymore. So, you know, that's what's going to burn, is that facade of control. And then if we can have conscious CEOs go through their own awakenings, en masse, you know what I mean? Like during this process, put something together where CEOs that are saying, come on, look at them right now. They're shut down right now. And they're going to have to come to some conclusion about how to put something together now, Satyen. We're already there.
You know, I'm blessed to have a very powerful group of CEOs that I personally coach and mentor in my equilibrium circle. And all that you've been sharing, we've been applying now and learning and transforming internally for years. And what's happened is every one of their businesses is thriving. The humanness is thriving. The loyalty within the groups through this trying time is thriving. The best of their teams is coming to the surface while this period. Why? Because the illumination that they have fostered, the equilibrium they've been cultivating, the warrior sage cultivation that they put themselves on to become the leader, the transcendent leader of a new reality starting now. It's paying off. The return on investment is beyond anything. Right now, illumination, transcendence, learning the art and skill of awakening to our nature and aligning the architecture of our businesses from our core of leadership is not only nouveau vogue or cool or hip, it's the necessity of our time.
And their souls are being validated and you know, beyond, you know, that, listen, they're being honored as a soul. That those leaders are honoring the souls that exist within their organizations, not as an energies unit that supports the hierarchy, but as an individual that actively participates in the whole. You know, so they feel empowered. They feel like, oh, my personal purpose, I can accomplish my personal purpose within the construct of this environment and still not be disempowered. I'm fully empowered in supporting the greater whole of this business. I mean, it doesn't get better than that.
It's such an amazing time for the CEOs on our planet to reassess and relook, not the external, but to start feeling what's the soul feeling? What's comfortable in my soul to move forward with? In my heart, what's comfortable? Because the inner voice doesn't speak with necessary words. It speaks to us in terms of inner comfort or lack of comfort. And where within ourselves are we not in comfort? Those signals to become aware of, to become sensitive to, is very heightened right now, very powerful. And those who are courageous and might need help, you might need help making that transition because you only know how to operate in the previous way.
They're going to
This is
need
where
help.
people like us come in. This is where people like us come in.
Yeah.
We help make the bridge of how to operate from the new operating system, which is Gaia-centric omni-win.
And one of the areas we help them, which has driven me my whole life, Satyen, is fulfilling my spiritual contract. Fulfilling my spiritual contract. You know, and I take people through a process that I've developed, and my intuition kicks in it. As I take them through, we arrive at a place and I go, and this is why you're here. This is why you came to the planet. You know what I mean? And when you start, I don't know about, and I know you're the same as me on this, I got some internal dialogue going on that has kept me running even through the most challenging of times that I can't give up. Why? Because I have a contract to fulfill that I agreed to fulfill, and I must fulfill that contract, come hell or high water, right?
The integrity to fulfill, to first of all, to find and discover, align, and then get on and fulfill your spiritual contract is the call of this time. You hit it, my brother. It's the call, it's the essential devotion to self and devotion to all. That is the pinnacle of the call of this moment. I feel the heart of it. And so when you say that, I'm so happy. And I believe everyone can hear within themselves that they have a spiritual contract, that they have a higher calling to fulfill that they've made in the eternal dimension. And now that we're in the temporal dimension, we get to execute the temporal, the transcendental vision that we already have inherent in our DNA. We already have, like a bird's beautiful today in spring here in British Columbia, they're making nests. They didn't have any manual. They didn't have any lessons. It's inherent within them to make a beautiful nest to take care of their family, right?
Yes.
When we light up to the soul contract and dedicate, not just with discipline, but with the heart of devotion, the contract will illuminate itself, and our natural knowingness will arise. All that we've been training for all our years right now will come into highest pristine alignment and congruence. We don't need to learn anymore. We need to do the right thing.
Yes. What we already know. What we already know. And maybe that, not maybe, but that's the blessing, one of the blessings of the isolation right now is to let that other exterior start to fade away as the interior is becoming louder and louder and louder. It's gonna force the exterior to break and fall away, and what they're going to be left with is questions about who they are, why they're here. Boom.
Oh.
So Satyen, we're going to leave it on that note.
Oh.
Okay. Whew, I just got emotional. Hold on.
We're in the right time, in the right place. And we all are in the right time, in the right place. And we all are ripe for the next stage of our evolution.
Yeah.
We all are ripe to claim our birthright as divine beings having a human experience. We all are in the perfect timing to grow our hearts to embrace the brotherhood and sisterhood of mankind and our earthling status as fellow creatures on this planet and fellow servants and fellow expressions of the biosphere of Mother Gaia. We are all of that, even when we are this individual. And to know that we are already symbiotically connected to the whole. And we just have to surrender to that, align to that, and devote ourselves to the already happening unity that's living in our soul. This is the beauty of this moment as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So on that note, Satyen, I want to thank you for taking your time, for sharing your wisdom. And this interview took on a life of its own. I wasn't expecting that, you know? So I want to thank Satyen Raja, CEO of Warrior Sage, for all his wisdom. I'm Ron Ario. This has been the Journey to Awakening podcast, and we'll see you on the other side.
Aho.